these taskbars real quick. Okay, so all I'm going to do is make the same, these all have the same settings in them until I start modifying them. So for the basic use, it's really simple. It's 3 layers, and there are your base texture colors. And this is kind of what I want you to do, but I want you to take it as far as you can and really experiment and try and get somewhere. But at least you'll see the homework says 3 different material colors. So I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to call this, well, not in there. I want it out here. Okay, I'll just make a new fill. And I'll put it at the top. Okay, and then I'll do this. Actually, let me make sure I save this because it's not like it's brilliant, but saving it's important. Save it. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of all this. Bam, gone. I'm going to call this base. I'm going to call this base blue. And we'll call it sandstone. Sure, why not? Sandstone. And then I'm going to make a folder, and inside that folder, I'm going to throw this one in the folder. I'm just going to name this sandstone. And that's not how you sell it. That's sandstone. That's different. Stone. All right. So this base. Okay, make sure it's working there. Okay, good. So first thing I need to do is turn off everything, because this is a everything but color and rough. And in the rough, I want to have it all the way up. I want it there no shine whatsoever on this. And the second thing I want to do is I want to pick the base color I want to use for this as my cartoony or my stylized artwork. And what I would do is I'd say sandstone color. So I'd come in here, pick something, you know, a little bit orangey yellow, and then I want to make it the lighter version. So I'm going to pull this back to light, like this. Maybe a little bit more saturated, but let's bring it up here. Okay. And then that's our base level, and then I'm going to go add a new fill layer. And in that fill layer, and this is from Stylized Station, one of the basic things they show inside of there. It's a really cool website. They've got some tutorials and stuff, and it's interesting because they use people who aren't all doing the same thing, but it's all stylized tutorials. And my version of this is a hybrid, but for the basic parts, this is the same. This is exactly the same. I'm going to change this to linear dodge. All right, and then I'm going to add a generator onto it. And the generator is like those custom masks that we can make. This is just us making our own. I'm going to make sure it's only color in this case because I don't want any of that other stuff messing with it. I'm going to go back to my main thing and do the same thing. I only want color. And I'll leave it the default white. If you want to make it white, you can even make it whiter. Like that. Come back to generator, and then I'm going to click on generator, and I'm going to say mask editor. So this lets us do a lot more little custom things with our masks rather than just say paint our mask and do this or use a defined mask. This is how you make those defined masks, this mask editor. And you can see a lot of what's going on in here. So if you look at this, it says global blur. I can blur it out so it's softer. I can probably want to just mess with some of the stuff. I like the opacity a little bit stronger than the tutorial has it. He also blurs it out a lot. I'm not super great about it or agreeing on that. Here's one of the problems with my piece. This is too thin for a stylized texture. You know things are too thin and not correct if you can see more white than anything like this right down here. So there's some stuff that you're going to have to do to, like when I do this wood, I have to do some changes, not to the actual geometry, just the way that this stylized texture works on the geometry. But then I can come back into this mask editor, and if you don't know what's going on, if I click on this, this is the texture, the color, right? And if I click on this, this is the mask, and if I have something inside of the mask, there's another thing, and that's what opens this up. So, but if I click back on this, it closes stuff up usually. Oh, it's because I don't have any extra. But so when I want to mess with this mask, so you turn on the curvature and see if you can get it, because it kind of does what we did with our curvature map. It's just you're only fighting with the white, so that's kind of cool. And then we're going to play with this to try and get it to fill out a little bit. Maybe the blur works better if I turn this up. No, I'm not. I just kind of want to get those highlights to really I like this. This is the problem, and I can't focus on this. I have to focus on how these things are highlighting. So then I'm going to take this and say, I can do ambient occlusion on it a little bit too. Okay, so I've got my second layer, more or less. You know, there's some problems, but we can deal with that. And then I'm going to take this one, and I want to make this next version is going to be a copy of this version, but darker. So rather than, since Substance doesn't let you do an eyedropper onto a layer really correctly, I just do copy. So I Control C, Control V, and move it above. Okay, so this one now is overlaying that one. We know it's the same color family, which is the big thing I want to do. I just want to make it darker. A darker version of it, something like that. Because what we're looking to do, and this is one of the key things about the stylized textures, is get a gradient going from the brightest to this faded kind of like color in the middle. So we're gonna change this to overlay, so we get this. So that's kind of crazy, right? Then we're gonna put another one of our black masks on here this time. And then we're going to modify the mask by just like the same thing we did here, by putting a generator on it and then making a mask editor. What this does is it turns everything off a little bit more completely, and then only turns on what I click on here. And what I'm actually going to do in this one is say invert, and now it's inverted. So I've got the faded color in the base here. If we turn this off, you can barely see it, but there's some stuff that's a little bit lighter underneath, and we really just want to have this kind of be a gradient fade in. So the way you do that is with the world space normal, you turn that up to like this much, and if you turn this off, you'll see that it's a subtle but saturated change, and then you can change that blur a little bit so it fades in a little bit more. You can see it's very subtle changes there. You can play with the opacity, you can play with the global contrast and see if you want it to a little bit less. But the idea is now we've got this color bleeding into it, and honestly we can even come in here and pull back since we're only doing color again. Pull back on this a little bit if you wanted, but now we've got our highlights, we've got a secondary gradient shadow thing, and then we've got, and it's funny because I didn't put the grunge on this one as much as I did on this one, so it's a question if they tile well. In fact, I have a problem. Anyway, that's my deal. So then after I do that first one, what you all are going to do, and then again I can keep tweaking, this is probably a little bit stark for me, so we could turn this down quite a bit or whatever, or we could do play with the texture opacity so it's a little bit less overkill. Anyway, you'll be able to play around and see what you like best to get what you want. We really just want to show a fade between the two colors as you go in, and that helps, especially in rounded objects. It will make a bigger difference. Flat objects, it's hard to see, but it's there. So the next thing we're going to do is take this sandstone and Control C, Control V it. Or sandstone, Control Z, Control V it. Then I'm going to come into the sandstone and I'm going to change my base color to, let's say, a stone color. So I'm going to make it a gray bricky kind of, gray blue brick right here, or a stone. And then I'm going to come up to this one, and I'm going to change this to that same color. I can try and do, maybe this will work. I guess it does work now. Sometimes it's like fickle, and maybe they've changed it recently, so it's definitely possible. And then I'm going to pull this back, and you can see what it's doing. And now I've got my gray brick, or my gray blue stone. Oh, thank you, Mr. Finger being slower. Stone. Okay. And then I'm going to copy it again, and I'm going to come in here, and we're going to call this one, well, what I like to do is make two versions of the same type of stone, one darker than the other, that way I can come back and play with it. But we'll just do another start color. I only want 3 colored stones for you, but if you want to make versions of the same stone in different tonal values, that's great, and I think you should, but that doesn't count as 3 stone types. Or 3 metal types if you're using metal. It doesn't matter which one you're using. And that's the thing about metal too, is metal, even though it's metal, it's going to have a super light shine on it. So we're going to hack away at the way metal is in here by default. If you look at some of the plugins you can get for this, you can make diffuse or cartoon textures out of it. They actually make metal bake in the highlights. It doesn't even have a dynamic highlight, but I think that's a little old school in a lot of games like Fortnite or whatever, any games have reflective surfaces that are metal, so it helps sell them. But we still gotta push back that it looks like a metal surface. So I'll do this one as, we'll call it purple stone, just to have something. Again, just duplicating it. Oops. Coming down here, we're gonna do this. We're gonna say purple. No, you know what? Yeah, we'll just do purple. And remember, this one needs to be lighter, like that. And then we're going to come up to this one and do an eyedropper on this purple. So we have the starting point, and we'll pull it back to darker. Okay. So, and then one we could do too is one more. Like for me, I had this wood peg. So I'm going to make another one. Copy C, copy V. Or copy C, copy V, Control C, Control V, and change this to wood. And then I'm going to open that one up, and I'm going to change this to a wood color. So I'll come over here, actually down here, get a nice tan. I'll turn off the purple now so I don't get the weirdness. Get a nice wood tan, like I want the lighter, like the grain of the wood, the meat of the wood. Probably like that. And this one, I'm going to do the eyedropper, grab that yellow, and go darker. Okay. What I might do, if I remember right, is if I look at this as my example, I will play with this mask. If I'm only looking at this right now, if I play with this mask, and then I'm going to say, pull back on it a little bit, try and get it super tight. Yeah, like, so it only have the very slightest highlight. And then pull back on that texture opacity. I could even, I'm going to come back up to this darker one. And kind of what I want for this darker one is to go into the crevices a little bit more. So I'm going to pull this down darker. And then I'm going to, that's really dark. There. And then I'm going to go to the mask for this one and try and see if I don't invert it. Yeah, see how it goes in there? Then I can pull back on it and pull back on it. And what you could try is putting this underneath it this time. But I would play around with it, try to get something. And then now I have everything kind of looking like this burned wood look, which is fine for now. So I've got my base textures. Now the problem is I want some of them on some parts of this and some of them not on the other parts. The easiest way to do that is to make a mask, right? So since they're in folders, I can mask exactly what I want each part to be. And how do I do that? I click on add. We'll say, we'll do a mask with color selection. And remember that ID mask I made? If I look at it, it's all my parts are all set up for me. So I'm going to say pick color, and look, it all turns one color, and I'm going to say this is my gray stone. So I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to go ahead and hide these first. So I just have gray on there, and I'm going to pick another color like this one, and this one, and this one. Yeah, when you have all colors for these bricks, that works, but it'll be helpful when I start making something a little bit darker. This one, and this one. But you notice it grabs all those colors, but it's probably also doing something down somewhere else that I may not want. Okay, so I got that one. I'll close that up. See, that's my starting point for those. Then I'll go to purple. My purple is going to be these in here, and oops, that's up here. Then I go to create a mask, use color selection, pick a color, and pick this one. And then I'm going to pick the interior of this one. And then you know what I'm going to do is come back to my gray and say, I'm going to pick, again, go to this color selection. I'm going to pick this, so I get some gray coming out of the stone. Okay, so, and again, you could make this into different pieces. You could come back in and say, I want 3 gray, so they're not all to 1 gray. So like for this one though, we have a dance, right? Because it's all wood all the time. So how do I do this? Because it's not really a polygon. I have to do it the old-fashioned way. Make a black mask, right? And then inside my black mask, I have my texture, my grayscale to white. And then I'll come in and start painting into the mask the color I want. And this is where you put your headphones on when you're working, I hope, or blast your music and just work. You need to put your music on and get your into that art zone. Okay, so let's do one more. Let's do these. How do we do this metal? I'm going to do 2 different metals on here. I'm going to grab this purple, copy, paste. I'm going to change this to copper rivets. I'm going to come down here, go to my standard, and instead of using this for standard, if you select a standard texture like this, and then you open up your material editor and grab one of the base materials, like this one, you just select it, all of a sudden, it starts showing up wherever that is. It replaced that purple material I had with this color right there. So I'm going to go ahead and move the copper rivets to the top of everything. And then it's still using the mask I used for the other one, so I can go back to my color selection and say none of those, please. So it'll take all of them off. And then you'll notice that my colors really, well, I do have some here actually. I think there's some there, and then there's some there, and then there's some there, and then there's some there. And I think rivets like this, a little bit of metal on this cartoony stuff actually works out pretty well. The worst part about what we're looking at right now is this purple. But one of the things we do see is, look at this. It's got bronze all over the place. So how do we fix that? Because apparently they're very close to the same color. So if you want to add to any mask and act like it's just a black mask, you have to make it editable like a black mask would be. So to do that, you come here and you say add a paint layer to, and you're just in the mask. I'm still selecting the mask, and I say add paint, and you'll see there's a paint layer above the mask, above the color selection. And then I can go over to my favorite tool and go to this polygon fill and just make sure it's set to black, so it's going to deselect anything from the mask and just grab all of this stuff like that. Anything I want, just to make sure none of that mask goes in there, and then go back out. And now I've got that gone, but I still have my rivets going. Okay, so the last bit is we're going to make this one silver. Now we've got our copper. Oh, the other thing is I usually come back in, and by the way, this is what I meant by if you have one of these sub parts selected, it doesn't close it up, even if I do this kind of stuff. You need to come to the texture base, and then it'll close it up. So I'm going to open this up. I probably don't want it to be purple. That's another thing, so I'll do a little, see if I can get some color off of here. I'm not sure how much it's going to change it. And the other thing you might want to think about doing is coming to this one right here, which is your brass, and messing with some of, like, probably don't care about the height. I probably want to pull the roughness back or up a little bit, maybe get some shiny stuff inside of there, but not super shiny, so it still feels flattened, the color, and then you can add the color up or down, or more color or less color. And then you can also really push like this layer here to, with this mask, let me get zoom in on this here, to be a lot more contrasty, I think it is. Yeah, I had a bunch of settings that I played with. I just played around until I got what I liked, but if I turn this texture opacity up, and then I turn the world space, maybe, and then turn contrast. It is making my computer mad. Somebody from the other class, or from next semester, is emailing me and saying, asking about what they need for their computers and stuff. And I'm like, God, I don't have time for you. I mean, that's great. So curvature opacity, turn that down. I'll look up my numbers and I'll show them to you. I'll probably save that file that you just saw and I'll post it so you guys can get to the actual these layers. Though not this one, the better one. Anyway, so what you'll see is we still have a little bit of crap going on in here. First off, one thing you should know is the higher resolution your render is, the better it's going to look. See, it looks worse. But the longer it takes to work through all the problems, because it's rebaking your maps and it's retightening everything up, and it still looks like crap. So, didn't really help me. Let's go back to 2048. Okay, so what we can do is come back into here, close this, and when we have this paint, we don't have to use the polygon fill. We can also just use the paintbrush. And what we can do is make our paintbrush smaller and just fill in where we want it to fill in. That way we get a little bit smoother of a transition for the pixels. Like that. And then push X, it'll invert the select color. Goes to black. Invert it again, come back in here. You get the gist. Alright, so now I've got my rivets. I just need to make this, I'm going to make this a steel type piece. So pretty easy. I'm going to copy, select this, copy, paste. We'll call this steel bracket or something. And then we're going to come inside of here, open up our menu, select, open this up, go to our brass, and select some kind of metal that we like. Put this down here. You can do it. There you go. Maybe carbon fiber. That'd be funny. But don't forget, it's going to use the mask that we have already on there, so don't worry. It's still going to be okay. We're going to fix it. Just find one you like. Let's say maybe cobalt. That's pretty good. It's pretty strong. We could do something like... You want to make it... That one's not bad. It doesn't have too much perfection inside of it, and we can mess with the scratches and stuff. Okay, so we have that. And we'll call this steel. I can't spell steel right in both cases. Just not for the right times. Okay, oh, look at that. No, I can't. Okay. Oh, you suck. Alright, so now we're going to come back in and mess with our mask, right? So our color selection's fine, or we should just minus those out. And then we should say color selection, pick, and green. And look at that, that green goes everywhere. So we're back to our paint layer, and we can take it and do this first. And just do that. And you'll see it's not going to hit perfect because it's not, I didn't cut this, I just picked a random one. But so I'm gonna have to do some painting, but it won't be too bad. So if I come in here and I pick, make sure you pick something like a inside your brushes, something like a basic hard, so it's not got any fast soft edges. And then come up here and you click once. Oh, let me just switch it to the other brush. So it's white. We need it to be black. So I click once and you see it goes away, and if I hold shift, I'm not clicking, I'm just going to push shift, it makes a line. If I hold shift and control, it's a 90-degree line, or 45-degree angles. Actually, I guess it's 30-degree angles, but still, we needed it for the bam, perfect. I'm going to click right here, maybe there, and then shift and drag down to the bottom, past it, got that one, that one, that one, that one. Good enough. Now it looks like I don't have Interestingly, it didn't keep these, so go back and do this here. So we can do the same thing, we just did invert it. Paint, and it went to a different brush magically there. And I went to a different, that's what happened, stamp. Okay. Then I'm going to go to white, because I want to keep this. I'm going to go from here, shift, and then click to here. Shift and click to here. We can get this one over here. Click. Shift and click. And it looks like it's funny because you want to turn it around, but it's just a 2D image. There. And then we can come in and just paint out this. And I won't clean up this one, so why would it be clean now? Okay. So it's still too shiny, and we don't really have any of the highlight stuff going on. It's going to be harder to see in here with this one. So we're going to come back to our steel, turn off or turn down the rough, maybe the metal. Turn off the metal, maybe. Meh, I don't like it off, but I don't like that we have a super lot of options. I don't need the normal. Okay, so I've got this flattened steel feel to it, and then I want to come back into my base sandstone, which is this one right here first, and I'm going to say height, or I'm going to say mess with the mask, and I'm going to turn contrast down on it, yeah, so I can get some of those whites in there, and then I'm going to turn the texture opacity up. There we go. Maybe 2 is one now. Then I want to contrast it more again. There we go. And we can turn this back down. That's what I was trying to do before. So we get a little bit of built-in. Probably global balance is too right. So just do it. We almost want it to be really stark. And then if we come back into our steel and we turn our rough down, not a lot, but enough, it'll feel like those highlights are always on those edges that we've ran in there. Okay. You could do glowing stuff in here. I'm not going to require it. You can do whatever you want. Obviously, purple and yellow are bad, by the way, so don't do this. I was just showing you to show you the stark contrast. Here's another one. This yellow is bleeding too much into this right here, or I think it is. So what I generally do is come back to my sandstone. I come back to my stone, and in this one, I'd add again another paint, and this time I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna go like this much, so it's not even that much, so I get some of it failing out. Goodness. Oh my gosh. You gotta stop.
I have to click on all the notifications and the notifications.
What's that?
When that happens to me a lot too, I have to open up all the notifications and close all of the Google notifications at once. Otherwise, it can do it for like.
That's Discord notifications.
That's what this. It looked like the Chrome notifications.
No, it was Discord. The weird thing is, this isn't even my master monitor. My master's up top. Anyway, but I always get my notifications down there. Maybe I did set that as not the master. Maybe it's the up one. Anyway, so I come in here and I can fade these in and out as I need to. You know, and that's the thing with the darker versions too. So you can come in and say, I want to take out, you can put a darker layer in here, like here, I'll just duplicate this layer, copy, paste, and then this one's going to be darker altogether, so I'll take this and push it down in the darkness, like that, and then we'll ignore this, yeah, that's right, we'll turn this up, so it shows up better. This one's pretty faded, I don't know what I did wrong there, but it's that it's probably small. But anyway, so I can come in here and then go back to gray blue, go to my paint, we'll call this dark, so we know it's dark. And then we're gonna come into our paint and we'll turn it to like this much and start fading it out, so we've got layers. You know, it doesn't actually have to be completely stark. I don't want it to be realistic, so I'm not going to fade into it too much, but I can pull out some of this and just push some of that stuff back by doing it this way. So it's kind of cool. And really, I've made one material and just changed the colors around and tweaked around with it. So this is what I'm looking for Monday, because on Monday, either I've decided if I'm going to give you a model just to put your materials on, your trim sheets on, in like a 3D model, like a pillar or something, or if I'm going to, and we can also, this is really dark, so I'm going to pull it back. Or if I'm going to have you use your own, but if I have you use your own, it's, you know, that's the problem with it. I don't really think there's anything that'll make it easy. I just want to get them in and out. Anyway,